Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful spring morning this is. Maybe we are finally embracing spring. Are we good now? Can you hear me now? Still can't. Let's try it now. Is that better? I'm going to start over. Good morning. And what a wonderful spring morning this is, and beautiful weekend to start the season. Welcome to this sacred space that is the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is Tim Krause, and I'm going to be your worship leader today. We're glad to host visitors as well as our guest speaker, the Reverend Dennis McCarty. And we're so glad you're here with us, Reverend Dennis. One of the best friends a congregation can have, and he's been with us many times. I use the term sacred to describe this space because by gathering here, every imperfectly perfect person here coming together makes it a sacred space. Our mission at First Church is to welcome all with love, to support learning and spiritual growth, to serve our wider community, and to work for justice, equity, and inclusion. So it matters not what age we are, what gender or non-gendered identity we have, what our ethnic background is, what our economic status is, or what our citizenship status is. We are all welcome here with an unconditional acceptance and an unconditional love. We're striving to build a beloved community that puts our values into practice. We also know and acknowledge that we do all of this on stolen land of people who actually still live among us. The Shawnee, the Miami, the Delaware, the Wyandot, and so many others of the native nations whose ancient artifacts still exist on this land. So if you are visiting with us today, we especially welcome you. And please feel free to join us for coffee hour following the service, which will take place in the Ellen Hall room, which is directly across from the entrance when you came into the church today. And we would love to have a chance to get to know you and tell you a bit about our beloved community. Our flowers today are the gift of Barbara Bonney in honor of her daughter Rachel's birthday. Those are really beautiful, Barbara. Today, after the service, there will be a membership orientation in room 207 for a brief session. So if you are part of that, you'll know that they're gathering right after the service today. So before we begin our service, let's take a moment to wave to the people watching from home and then rise and greet our neighbors. When you hear the singing bowl, return to your seats. So as we find our seats, our children from the religious education are going to light the chalice and do their chalice lighting routine.
Friends. So I have a really special story for us today. It's perfect for this time of year. But before we start in with today's story, I have an announcement for parents, grandparents, anyone who has a small one who's joining us downstairs in Sunday school. We are going to be working with peanut butter today. For the registration, doesn't say anything about anyone having any nut allergies. But we have friends that are visiting us today, and I don't have all the registration and medical information for all the students. So if that is problematic, okay, we are not going to do that until the very end of class today, so you can come find me downstairs. We have an alternative project we could do. Okay, so if there is a nut allergy problem that's not on file, I'm not aware of, come find me, let me know, I'll be downstairs. All right, so today's book is all about the importance of appreciating nature. And some of my friends have already appreciated nature. Esther brought me a dandelion. Look at that. You picked it? That's perfect. So it's important for us to appreciate what nature has to offer, okay? Oftentimes we can get really wrapped up into things like our phones and video games and our toys and being inside, and we just go outside to get from one place to another place. I do that a lot. And with spring coming up right now, it's really important to appreciate all the wondrous things that are outside and about nature. Really big things like some of the big thunderstorms we've been having and some of the rain. I mean, that's a pretty wondrous thing. But also the tiny little things like the little insects and the trees starting to bloom. Right? Those are little small wonders that we need to appreciate as well. So hopefully this book is an inspiration for all of us to spend some time outside with spring coming to life, enjoying some of those big and small wonders. So the book is called Outside In. Okay. Once, we were part of the outside, and outside was part of us. There was nothing between us. Now, sometimes even when we're outside, we're inside. See, he's in the car. We forget outside is there. So outside reminds us. With flashes at the window and slow magic tricks. It sends the sunset and shadows inside to play. Outside sings to us with chirps and rustles and tap-taps on the roof. It beckons with smells, sun-baked, fresh, and mysterious. Outside feeds us. Sun, rain, and seeds become warm bread and berries. Outside cuddles us in clothes, once puffs of cotton, and holds us in wooden chairs, once trees. We feel outside in the warm weight of our cats and the rough fur of our dogs. Outside shows us there is a time to rest and a time to start fresh. Outside steals inside, a spider seeking shelter. Who has stink bugs in their house right now? Little stink bugs or something? Yeah. They all went to my house, I think, because we have a million. A boxelder bug in the bath, a tiny snail on kale. Even rivers come inside, cool water rushing, eager to return to the sea. In here, outside says, I miss you. Outside waits. And we answer. The end. You guys want to follow me downstairs?
And now it's time for another generic canvas testimony. And John Tenzing is here. Go ahead.
John Tenzing is here, I assure you, and I know you all want to hear from him. I'm Beth Lutz with the Canvas team. Just wanted to give you a brief update. As of last night, we've heard from 45% of repeat pledgers. So thank you, everyone who's pledged. That means there's 55% of you, if my math is right, who have not pledged, who've pledged in the past who haven't. We've got 2 weeks left in the pledge drive, so this week would be a great time to either go online or stop outside the table, and we've got blank forms out there to fill out as well. We did also receive pledges from 3 new pledgers who've never pledged before. So thank you all very much, and now hear from John.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Tenzing. Mary Kay and I, we've been part of we've been a part of First UU for about 10, 11 years, so something like that. And I'm happy to be here and talk about the canvassing. There's so many people here, as Beth's already shared, people are responding to the call. We need all of us to make this a success. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. There's people who have been here 2-3 times more than we have, and have gotten a lot out of this. We need to keep it going, to keep committed. I'm sure I was suckered. I mean, I was chosen in to do this because I'm not sure why. They ran out of people. But in my extensive Google search, 20 minutes at least, I found this poet. His name is Guillaume Apollinaire. That's French for you who don't know what I'm saying. It's William. Bill had some great ideas. One of the things I found in his book that he talks about is the heart. And as the girls and the kids were just here talking about UU's heart, I happen to bring a heart here. This is a wax heart. I don't want to get too close to the candle there, but this could be our heart. And as I said, Bill, he lets me call him Billy now that he's dead 50 years. But he talks about how it's most effective when the heart, when you turn that, you take that opportunity to turn that, just turn it upside down, and it becomes a flame. And of course, first thing you think of UU is a flame. It's been there for, I don't know, 100 years yet. We've had a flame, 40s, something like that. But boom, that really caught my eye when he started talking about the flame. And that's what we need to get us moving most of the time. It's all real good and, thanks, I know you love me, but, you got to show me, like in what is that movie, Don't Talk of Love, Show Me, And we all do that all the time. We have an opportunity to show us, and financially and in our efforts to work with each other. Today, I just want you to look around the room and see how other members express their own flames. We all have a possibility to tap into that flame. So what each of us can do to activate our hearts into the flame that can contribute to continued growth and success of our beloved community at UU here. Making a pledge of financial support can be the first spark to get our flames ignited. This is critical and necessary for our growth. The fuel we use, the torches, are 8 principles. What does it look like in person? Take Ramona. I mean, this is a woman that she can relate to torch. You can't get too close to her, she'll singe you, she gets going. And Reverend Mary T.G., she's also a person that's kind of fired up at times. You'll see her dancing up and down the aisle when she gets lit up pretty good, Patty and Scott are torches that combine to make a heat of inspiration and leadership. Jera, her left hand is hot and her right hand is hotter. She can play all those guys, Jerkowski and Chopin and all those guys. And she has a choir here that can whip out the Hallelujah chorus just like the Mormon Tavern Choir. I mean, they're amazing. Tim. Did I say Tim yet? Tim, Lois, Larry, Dan, all these people, all in house band. Nancy's, Beth, so many others. The Barbs, wow. Lou and Phil, they're always up there. They're willing to light their fire and get us, make it clear that they're going to guide us and be there for us. There's so many others. I could use examples, and I encourage you to ignite your hearts. Turn it into that flame that we need, Sometimes it's hard to light, like it was today here, But we're ready and willing to do that. I've always been a proud member of this place, and my little heart pops up when I go to the pantry with Tom and all the other people here that work at the pantry. Mike there, he's my parole officer, and I have to make sure I check in with him every week. Hey, Mike, don't get him up here to talk. He'll talk all day. Anyway, that's all I really have to say. Just, and it's really easy to see this. When we do this all the time, you see this at the Olympics. All you got to do is just turn it a little bit and it becomes a torch, And that's what we're about. You're willing to do that, Oh, I love it here, I love it here. Well, what are you willing to do, And that's what the torch tells me. Thank you. Great to be here.
You're a hard act to follow. So our first hymn today is hymn number 1 in the gray hymnal. And I got to find it here. May nothing evil cross this door. So as you are willing and able, please join us in singing, standing.
This morning's reading is from a CNN Investigates article interviewing use of force experts on the shootings in Minneapolis a couple of months ago. In the chaotic moments leading up to Alex Pretty's death, January 24th, the aggressive actions of 2 federal agents transformed the encounter into a deadly shooting, while other agents helped restrain Pretty on a Minneapolis street and seized a handgun from his waistbands. Videos show these agents escalated the confrontation, first by pepper spraying and striking Pretty repeatedly in the face and on the head, and then by shooting him even after he was on the ground unarmed. Experts told CNN that the conduct of these two agents illustrate the dangers of flooding American cities with officers ill-equipped to deal with protesters in urban environments. Quote, law enforcement should always be looking to defuse the situation, to de-escalate situations, former ICE Chief of Staff Deborah Fleischiker said. Instead of doing that, they're leaning into the ways that they can escalate, close quote. If you take these people who are not trained or experienced and have them do that without supervision, you shouldn't be surprised when it doesn't go well, said Ashley Heiberger, a retired police use of force expert. The two officers in question repeatedly struck Preddy in the head with a pepper spray can after he had been forced to the ground. Then they fired 4 shots at him after he had been disarmed. And as the officers back away from Preddy in the video, there's a pause in the shooting that lasts just under a second, and then 5 more shots are fired. The entire shooting is concerning, said Scott Murgos, a professor of criminology and criminal justice at the University of South Carolina. I'm extremely concerned by that second volley. Even if one wants to give officers the benefit of the doubt on the first volley, I do not understand how one could reasonably explain how those additional shots in the second volley were necessary. Close quote. 3 law enforcement experts told CNN the pattern of shots could be indicative of contagious fire, a term used to describe when an officer fires a weapon in response to the sound of another officer's gunfire. When we put, and I'm quoting here, when we put untrained officers through a simulation in these types of environments, we see that they're over 11 times more likely to fire with that stimulus present of a previous shot. And then on top of it, they fire another 72% more rounds on average, close quote. Former ICE Chief of Staff Fleischiker was critical of the officer's decision to use deadly force and said the shooting exemplifies how the Trump administration's law enforcement tactics have embraced, quote, a maximalist approach to power, close quote. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. See if I can outwit my own cord here. Back in 1970, of course, inadequately trained National Guard soldiers, inadequately trained National Guard soldiers opened fire on the campus of Kent State University, killing 4 students and maiming several more, some for life. And rock and roll musician Neil Young, I bought his book, sat down and wrote one of the great songs of anguish and protest of all time, Ohio. Tin soldiers and Nixon coming, he wrote, we're finally on our own. This summer I hear the drumming, 4 dead in Ohio. And sort of as a tribute to Neil Young, and also that we're 70 or 56 years later, we're back in the same situation or a similar situation. Decided to add some lyrics to Neil Young's song. I call this version Tin Soldiers Revisited, and your band folks are going to help me out and hopefully save my bacon here. This is the first time this song's ever been done for anybody anywhere, and we'll see what happens. And I don't know, if you feel like singing along, go ahead if the lyrics are available. Here we go.
Tin soldiers are back in business. Their drumming gives me the chills. Tin tough guys guy politician, how many will he get killed?
He thinks it's a game show. Your blood is just a prop. If bodies fall, it's still all good. It's his distraction from all he's trying to hide. He couldn't care less, it's not his blood.
Tin soldiers are back.
They're finally come.
The chills, the tough guy politician, how many will he get killed?
He never reads a paper, he doesn't give a damn. We're only money in his hand.
To have a future,
We've got to grab it ourselves. It's time we make a stand. La 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 la. How many will he get killed? He thinks it's all a game show. Your blood is just a prop. If bodies fall, it's still all good. It's his distraction from all he's trying to hide. He couldn't care less, it's not his blood.
tin soldiers are back in business. Their drumming gives me the chills. Tin tough guy politician, how many will he get killed?
How many will he get killed? How many will he get killed? Well, thank you. We're all awake now. Religious historian Karen Armstrong notes that during the First Crusade, 1,000 years ago, the flower of medieval knighthood massacred tens of thousands of helpless people who posed no danger to them. They killed thousands of Jews before they even left Europe. They killed thousands more Jews and Muslims when they reached the Middle East. And then when they finally captured Jerusalem in 1099, they killed 40,000 men, women, and children in a 2-day festival of murder. They even killed Middle Eastern Christians for possible heresy. And what's more, Armstrong tells us, the Crusaders considered all that killing a wonderful achievement, the Lord's work. As another example, the current Netflix documentary, Ordinary Men, looks at Nazi Einsatzgruppen and, quote, quote, police battalions sent to shoot captured Jews in occupied Poland and Ukraine in the Second World War. 70,000 men participated in these hit squads, and they killed millions. But similar to medieval knights, the few that were brought to justice after the war tested out psychologically as normal, healthy. And rather than shame, they expressed surprise and anger that they faced punishment for doing what they had believed was a difficult but necessary job. If anything, they considered themselves heroes, which brings us to the United States today. Under presidential orders, National Guard troops and federal ICE and Border Patrol agents have repeatedly invaded American cities. Now they're talking about having ICE officers do TSA screening, and they've been detaining thousands of men, women, and children. Very few detainees have criminal records. Many are in the country legally, and some have even turned out to be U.S. citizens. Legal status or not, though, they get hauled out of workplaces, schools, and even their own homes. Some are injured in the process, and dozens have been killed. The bombing in Iran, of course, has nothing to do with criminality. Like detainees in the U.S., the victim's primary crime is being of the wrong nationality or having the wrong skin color. Meanwhile, citizens who try to document or protest these actions risk beatings, arrest, or being shot themselves. And again, make no mistake, by psychologically ordinary, healthy Americans who consider their actions right and proper to the point that they truly believe themselves justified committing lethal violence against people who stand in their way. So, to say the least, atrocities like this have been going on for millennia. As Karen Armstrong writes, it's enough to destroy your faith in human nature. Then again, let us not be naive about human nature. People are complicated. Human nature itself has serious shadows, all of us. Back in the summer of 1971, Stanford University professor Philip Zimbardo set out to do a study of group behavior in a controlled setting. He and his staff set up a small prison in the basement of their building with cells, a room for solitary confinement, and spaces for sound and video recording equipment. It was an experiment. Volunteers for the study were all Stanford University students. They all signed consent forms and were randomly divided into two groups, guards and prisoners. The prisoners were told that they would be treated like real jail inmates. Excuse me. The guards were informed that their work would be serious, possibly dangerous, and were told to do whatever they had to within reason to keep order. And the experiment was set to last for 2 weeks, 14 days, 2 weeks. The local police department agreed to arrest the volunteer prisoners using standard police procedures. And when they reached the prison, the volunteers were stripped naked, given an antiseptic delousing shower, assigned numbers, and given smocks to wear as uniforms. Because the study was only to last 2 weeks, they didn't get their hair cut, but had to wear hairnets made out of nylon stockings. The guards quickly developed procedures to keep order. They lined the prisoners up in regular head counts, both to establish authority and make the prisoners memorize their own numbers. Prisoners who got out of line had to do push-ups as punishment. Before long, the guards began to step up the punishment on prisoners by stepping on their backs or otherwise harassing them to make the punishments more severe. On the morning of the second day, day 2, the prisoners rebelled, took off their hairnets and numbers, barricaded themselves inside their cells, and began taunting the guards. The guards responded with anger and aggression. One by one, they forced their way into each cell by spraying the prisoners with fire extinguishers. They then stripped the prisoners naked and stepped up the harassment and intimidation. Remember, these were all Stanford University students. No one had committed any crime. They were all there as volunteers, and they all knew that. Yet within 24 hours, they had formed 2 distinct groups, each of which despised the other. And even worse, Professor Zimbardo later wrote, he and his staff began to unconsciously buy into this same group dynamic. On the third day, Prisoner number 8612 began to show signs of stress, disorganized thinking, and uncontrollable crying and rage. But because Professor Zimbardo and his staff were now identifying with the guards, they accused prisoner 8612 of faking his symptoms and refused to let him leave. But his symptoms became worse, and finally, reluctantly, they did let him quit the study and go home. And this led to another problem. A rumor started circulating that 8612 was going to return with several friends and free the other prisoners. Professor Zimbardo believed that he had to foil this prison break, so he called the police and asked to transfer his prisoners to the real jail. And naturally, the police refused. They'd never been charged with a crime. Zimbardo later wrote, quote, "I felt angry and disgusted at this lack of cooperation between our correctional facilities. I was now totally into my role." In conducting the experiment, of course, his job was merely to observe and record the rumor and whatever came of it, not to worry about the security of his prison that wasn't even a prison. He had totally lost perspective on his own study. And about this time, a colleague happened to drop by and began to ask questions about the study's methodology, which was basically pretty much non-existent by this time. Quote, "To my surprise," Zimbardo later wrote, "I got really angry at him. Here I had a prison break on my hands, and now I had to deal with this bleeding heart liberal academic effete ding-dong who was concerned about the study's methodology." Zimbardo himself was no longer thinking as a researcher at all, but only as a member of the dominant group. As it turned out, the rumor was only a rumor. There was never any plan for an escape, but rather than being relieved, the guards became furious. They felt as though they had been tricked and, quote, escalated their level of harassment, increasing the humiliation, forcing the prisoners to do work such as cleaning out toilet bowls with their bare hands, making them stand for hours at a time, forcing them to wear bags over their heads. Standing for hours at a time with bags over their heads. 30 years before the Abu Ghraib prison scandal in Iraq, this study perfectly predicted what would happen there, including the humiliation. By the fifth night, Professor Zimbardo realized the study was out of control. He realized he had to call a halt. When he told the guards, they were furious. And on the other hand, the prisoners were jubilant. 6 days into a 2-week study, 2 groups of the most intelligent, best educated young men in the world were literally prepared to kill one another. Overwhelmed by group dynamics, these bright, healthy young men became capable of extraordinary cruelty in less than a week. The people supposedly in control, Professor Zimbardo and his staff, were just as trapped as their test subjects in a descending spiral of group dominance and retribution. Now, this is a famous study. Documentaries and movies have been made about it, and it has been criticized, both for the way it was conducted and also Zimbardo's conclusions. But what cannot be argued is the demonstrated power of group dynamics. There's another study called the Milgram experiment. And can we bring up the Milgram experiment slide? There's a diagram of the Milgram experiment, and it deals with the power of authority. And you may have heard of this one. Uses 3 people. E is the experimenter, T is the teacher, and they're in one room. And then in the next room, visible through a window, is L, the learner. The experimenter supervises the study, and he tells the teacher that the teacher's job is to test the learner on word association pairs. The teacher, as you can see, is seated at a supposed electrical control panel, and there's a cord running to the learner. The teacher is ordered to administer ever-increasing electrical shocks to the learner for every wrong answer. What the teacher did not know in this experiment is that they were the actual test subject. The experimenter E and the learner L were both actors. There was no electricity at all. The experimenter was the authority figure commanding the teacher to punish the learner with more and more severe shocks every time the learner missed an answer. If the teacher, again, the person actually being tested, was reluctant, the experimenter E would scold them following a set script of ever-increasing encouragement, shall we say. The learner would act as though they were being hurt and then in agony from the increasing shocks in quotation marks. Meanwhile, the voltage on the pretend electrical dial went all the way to 450 volts, a lethal shock if it had been real. But here's what's scary. Even though many of the test subjects, T, were visibly upset, they still delivered increasing shocks even when the actor screamed and collapsed in supposed agony. 65% of test subjects would administer the maximum shot the maximum shot. And I think I know myself well enough to be honest that I would be one of them, one of that 65%. And I think I'm a nice guy, but then again, in the whole study, only one subject, refused to continue as soon as he believed he was hurting the other person. Only one. The technical term with both these experiments, to get technical, is something social psychologists call de-individuation. In tense situations between opposing groups, a person is likely to stop thinking of themselves or those in the other group as individuals, fully human beings, and see them as just part of the other group, them. Or to put it in Unitarian Universalist terms, when we see ourselves and those in front of us as just members of opposing groups, we begin to lose track of inherent dignity and worthiness. And we're all vulnerable to this. Under the right conditions, we, all of us, begin to de-individuate. Following an appointed authority figure, the same thing begins to happen. The inherent dignity and worthiness of another person begins to collapse in the face of commands that might even be harmful to that person, for the greater good, usually. As the Milgram experiment shows, we're all vulnerable to that as well, though some personalities are more vulnerable to that than others. And we shouldn't get cocky about either of these experiments. We're all human. With the Nazi Einsatzgruppen and police battalion murder squads, or even with the National Guard troops at Kent State University, we, again and again, see how this blend of group dynamics and obedience to authority can become lethal. Again, going back to the 6 million Jews killed during the Holocaust, 2 million of them were shot by these roving murder squads who believed they were doing the right thing. Personally, I believe our war of choice with Iran speaks for itself. That's my opinion. You're free to disagree. And I don't particularly blame soldiers for doing what soldiers are trained and selected to do. I do, however, blame civilian leadership whose own information we've now been informed showed that the Iran nuclear situation did not warrant military action, and leaders cannot even tell us exactly why they went to war or what their final strategic goal is, and that's criminal. In my opinion, you don't have to agree with me. More specifically, in the case of ICE and the Border Patrol, I suppose we can take heart from the fact that they have killed relatively few people. But it's a matter of degree. isn't it? They've detained thousands, many of whom, again, are in the country legally, and some of whom have turned out to be American citizens. This policy is all about politics and psychological group dynamics, and it's deeply problematic. Going back to authority, the Journal of Social and Political Psychology, a well-regarded peer-reviewed scientific journal, cites studies that indicate that voters with higher levels of authoritarianism, defined as preference for strict hierarchy, order, and obedience to authority, are significantly more likely to support Donald Trump. Research shows that authoritarianism rather than economic distress is a key predictor of that support. Now, those are just statistics. But that's exactly what makes mass opposition and conscientious dissent important. When people's actions are de-individuated, that is, when people act out of group dynamics and obedience to arbitrary authority, I suggest that alternate voices become absolutely critical. Or to put it a little bit differently, resistance, not just by people in targeted groups, but also by their allies, is essential. Granted, ICE and Border Patrol agents will look on us through the lens of group dynamics as well, likely even as traitors to our own group. And we do hear that language, but the voices of allies definitely do get heard. And as we saw with the Stanford prison experiment, even the study's supervisor, Professor Zimbardo himself, fell under the sway of group dynamics to the point that when a colleague or even the local police disagreed with his behavior, he was furious. Now, whatever that study's flaws, I believe it does accurately predict the anger that ICE and Border Patrol agents show toward protesters. And if you've taken part in such protests, you know that we're instructed to keep our own behavior as non-provocative as possible because, frankly, an untrained armed mob is dangerous. Violence will quickly escalate beyond any reasonable response. But let's go back to that Milgram experiment. Suppose, here's a thought experiment. Suppose going in, the test subject got warned by a previous test subject and told that the order to harm the learner is unethical and they don't have to obey. The whole test revolves around the test subject being kept in ignorance about the real issues. The real issues need to be raised. The whole test revolves around the ignorance of the test subject about the real issues, and the outcome collapses if you provide information about the real context. We need to name ethical and human rights issues. We need to call people back to our own humanity to dispel the shadows of propaganda and groupthink. The biggest difference between the United States of today and the examples I cited from the Holocaust and the First Crusade is that one crucial word: dissent. Voices of reason and reality, courageous reminders of truth, of context, of factual information are vital in the face of heedless group instinct. And at the same time, I believe a degree of humility is also important. Religious liberals are pretty independent toward authority, but we are also subject to group dynamics. I, too, have been known to look on ideological opponents as them with perhaps a little less inherent dignity and worthiness than us. I do it, too. I suspect we all do. But I do believe that if we stay courageous, determined, and self-aware, we can rewrite a little of the history that our great-grandchildren are going to read 50 years from now. I suggest people willfully ignorant of the processes going on in their own heads are not able to change history, at least not for the better. They can make it worse. But if we can be thoughtful, determined, courageous, and a little bit humble, we might just be able to make history a little better. Blessed be, and amen. And I invite you to...
Before we do the final hymn.
Okay.
That's why I came up.
I stand corrected.
We all know that next Saturday is No King's Day, and it's organized by a group of people known as 5051. And we have a representative from the organization here today, and she wanted to relay a message to our congregation. So Emily, if you could come up, we'll do that before we sing our final hymn.
Hi, I'm a visitor here. I've only been here a few times, but the community is lovely. Sorry, I'm a little anxious, but so I am an organizer with 5051, and we are in need of medics and marshals for the protest on Saturday. And so if anyone has any interest or knows anybody that has interest in doing that, we are having a training on Wednesday night. So I can give you the details for that. So the process would be just learning about, if you are a marshal, how to de-escalate, how to make sure that you are keeping everybody else safe in the community. And if you're a medic, it would be either using your training that you have in your medical experience or being a lookout. So we normally pair people, so there's 2 people to take care. So there's one person to help, the person that's in need, and then the other person to watch out. I will let you know. So this protest is, we're expecting about 15,000 people. So it will be at City Hall. And our first speaker is going to be Timothy Snyder. So Timothy Snyder, he wrote a great book called On Tyranny. And it's super thin and really worth reading. It's 20 lessons for the 21st century, and it's basically how to recognize authoritarianism and how to push back. And so he'll be our first speaker, and then we're going to have information on voting and on unions and on the general strike that's planned for May 1st. So it is a place to come to learn how to push back and work together nonviolently to get to a better place. You know, the intent is that we are going to learn how to become a better society together. So I have some flyers here, and it has a QR code on it. So if there's anybody that's interested, you can go to the QR code. It takes you to our link tree, and that will take you to our sign-up sheet so that you can sign up to be a medic or a marshal, and we'll send you information on the training. So that would be Wednesday night. Protest is 1 to 3 p.m. on Saturday. There will be a march, and there will be a flash mob. So if anybody wants to, do some silly dancing to get some joy in this too, we hope to see you there. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Emily. And Emily will be at the coffee hour, and people can talk with her afterwards. So as our final hymn, we're going to sing The Fire of Commitment. And for those of you who are willing and able, please join us by standing and singing our final hymn. One little side note about that song, the lyrics were written by Mary Catherine Mourn, who is the CEO and president of Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. So, Patty, could you come up and extinguish the chalice as I read our closing words? You were standing, so I'm going to have you come up anyway. Let us go out into the world singing songs that turn ashes into garlands, songs that bind up the afflicted and those who mourn, songs that, like oaks, have roots that grow deep and strong. Let us go out into the world singing. We know these songs. They vibrate through time in our very souls. They are the songs that give us life. They are the songs that give us meaning. They are the songs that give us purpose. Now it is our turn to take these life-giving songs out into the world. Let us go now, singing these songs with the voices deep and strong, and may the world join us in praise and in celebration and in love. Amen.